Well, hello and welcome to Calvary Church. My name is Sean and I'm the online gathering pastor. You know, at Calvary, we are on mission to catalyze an epic release of Jesus apprentices who are connecting to Christ, to community, and to their calling. If you are a guest with us, we'd love for you to reach out so that we can connect with you. If you're watching on YouTube, shoot me an email. And while you're on YouTube, help us out by subscribing and clicking the like button. Well, this is a CWOW weekend, which stands for Church Without Walls. And it is our encouragement to you to do something this weekend to love, serve, and bless those around you. Maybe it's spending some time praying over your neighbors or coworkers. Whatever it is that you decide, just make it happen. Well, coming up today, we have two of Calvary's pastors and one of our leadership team members joining us for a discussion about the importance of eliminating hurry in our lives.
Father God, I need more. Our church needs more. My family needs more. I want more. I want more hope, more joy, more peace, more love.
I want the fullness of life that Jesus offers. Father, saturate my soul with your Spirit so that I overflow with Jesus. I want more.
But I confess I'm full of everything but Jesus. I've loaded my mind with so much noise that it's weary and worried. I've heaped stuff upon my soul that's left little space for the Spirit who truly satisfies.
I filled my time with my own agenda. I'm full, but it's not you. Something has to go. I'm bringing you everything, not you, that fills me up. I open my hands in a posture of surrender. Empty me. The noise, the distractions, the clutter, the fears, my attempts to control, my bitterness, my wounds,
the burdens I've tried to carry on my own, my attempts to control, my stuff, even me. Empty me of me. With open hands, I surrender everything, not you.
Empty me so you can fill me with joy and peace that overflows in hope.
Empty me so you can saturate my soul with your Spirit.
Empty me so I can abound with the life coming from your hand.
Fill us so full that we can't help but overflow with Jesus. Fill our families with your presence. Fill our neighborhoods with your love.
Fill our valleys with the knowledge of your glory. Fill us so full that we can't help but overflow with Jesus. Amen.
Well, I'm Scott Letty. I'm one of the pastors here at Calvary Harvest Fields, and thank you so much for joining us. And we also have a couple other gentlemen here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name is Alex Raup. I am a longtime Calvary attendee, husband, dad, elementary principal. Love talking about this kind of stuff.
Nice. That was a good introduction. I'm Jake. I'm the youth pastor, and I also have a great wife. So,
my wife is also great. And we're Jake and Alex and I are friends. We enjoy laughing together, but also talking about serious theological stuff. And so, as you know, if you've been hanging with us for any length of time, we've been on a 50-day journey. We're about 20 days into this 50-day journey about emptying ourselves to create space for Jesus. And this week, we're specifically kind of talking about the topic of slowing. But before we zero in on slowing, just kind of being 20 days into this journey, what has stood out most to you guys, whether it's from one of the sermons or whether it's from something from the journal? What's kind of jumped out at you as you guys have been doing the reading and all that good stuff?
I think for me, I'm a professional quiet timer. Like I can cross off a quiet time with the best of them. But I feel like I'm also notorious for I get sit down the next day in my perfect quiet time chair early in the morning, and I have no idea what I just did the next day or did the day before. So I think that I've been really trying to slow and to realize that the practices that we're talking about aren't just applicable at 5 o'clock in the morning. They need to be applicable at 5 p.m. and something that I'm thinking about throughout the day. And that service, the idea of service is good, but it needs to not be something I just check off. But I'm constantly thinking about how it can impact my day and change the way that I interact with people.
Yeah, I think I shared this on, I guess it was this last Sunday. There's a verse in Exodus 14 where Moses is, leading the Israelites away from the Egyptians. They get to the Red Sea and everyone's like, you brought us out here to die. And Moses basically is like, the Lord will fight your battles. You need only to be still. So I think it's so easy. There's been times in my life where I've thought, hey, I need to slow down. I need to take things more intentionally, and it just doesn't last very long. And so I think, honestly, one of the biggest pieces for me has just been that reminder of stillness, and to be still, you have to slow down, and slowing down in the world we're in is not at all easy right now because there's so many things happening. So there's been so many good things that have been said, but honestly, the most important thing for me has been that reminder of how important it actually is to slow down, to be still.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of that, Jake, is for my life specifically, it's the idea of like, okay, maybe I don't have like a lot of quote unquote serious things on my calendar like all day and then all night. It's like, I'm home. I have a couple evenings through the week where I'm just kind of home and there's not a lot on the calendar. There's not a lot necessarily to do, but the busyness stays because of the social media, because of the electronics, so the busyness doesn't translate to silence. It doesn't translate to kind of listening or emptying myself. It just translates to me being busy in a way, at least if nothing else, kind of like mentally, just with the amount of stuff and content and things that I'm just kind of filling my eyes and ears and head with. So even when it's like, oh, I'm doing a good job of not just booking something every night of the week, there still it feels like, but I'm not really slowing. Yeah. I'm not really getting quiet. I'm not actually emptying. I'm just kind of taking that space and filling it with other stuff. So, kind of that idea of slowing, is the kind of specific focus, I guess, for this week. But both of you, what is it that you think about the practice of slowing or the spiritual discipline of slowing that's so important for us to get this right?
I mean, I think even kind of going off of what you were just talking about with, even when we're not actually doing stuff, we're busy. Like, honestly, I thought this is a little bit, of a bummer to admit. But like times where I'm like, oh man, this was such a busy week. And then I look back and it's like, did I finish that entire Netflix series? Like, is that gone? We're done with that. And that feeling of busyness. And so I think this idea of slowing, like, how are we supposed to actually build a relationship with God when we're never listening for him, when we're never actually spending meaningful time with him? Like, if I can sit down and watch 3-4 episodes of Netflix in a row, but I can't sit down and pray or read scripture for a few hours, like that's an issue. There's a problem there. And so we have to get better at slowing down in order to be able to hear from Jesus.
I'm embarrassed to say that I have a note on my phone with like all the Netflix shows I want to watch. But I don't have a note on my phone like for all like the scriptures I need to read. Like that's embarrassing. And it's true. Yeah. And I think too with slowing, like when you don't have margin in your day, then all the things that we're talking about, like silence and solitude, seeing intentional moments, like where you can serve and love on people. Yeah. If you don't have margin, you don't have space for God to show you how he wants to use you in that given day. So I go back to like, then my quiet time just stays a quiet time in the morning. It doesn't ever become something I'm doing throughout the day because I'm just going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing before I crash into bed and then rat race and redo the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
I think like I'm pretty decent at having I have like a Sabbath, a kind of a Sabbath day every week. Where, it's like you cease from working, but a lot of times I'll get done my Sabbath and it's like, I didn't actually do anything restful. Yeah. It's like all the stuff I did was like either just noise, it was just kind of like, I didn't work, but I didn't rest, and I don't know that really counts as slowing down. Like you said, Jake, even in my own personal relationship with Christ, but also like in my marriage, with my relationship with my kids, as we talk front yard mission, trying to connect with neighbors, it's like, if I'm filling so much of my time with that, I'm not slowing down to really focus on any relationship, but most importantly, my relationship with Christ. Yeah. There's a author, his name is John Mark Comer. He wrote a book a number of years ago called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I would just definitely recommend it to anybody who's interested in reading a book that is 100% going to make you squirm a little bit and feel convicted and just think like, I'm going to have to change something.
It's the worst to read.
It's like you read this book and walk away changing nothing. I don't know what to say to you. But one of the chapters in the book is specifically on the topic of slowing. And I know we've all read that chapter, so just kind of curious to hear, was there any specific takeaways?
I think the important thing about Comer before we even dive in is like, he's a guy who was crushing it. I mean, I think he's out in Seattle, mega church, growing by the thousands, like every couple months, and was like, as by the definitions of the world, was successful, and found like he had no margin to connect with God, connect with his family, with his community. And so he had to put practices into place, much like what we're doing with our 50 days, to be intentional. I think that slowing's at the heart of it. I think my big takeaway is that we've got to get ahead of it. I mean, that if we don't, I think he says that most of us suffer from pathological busyness, and I think that most of us are okay with it. The one that really got me in the gut was the comment that maybe most people are just too busy to follow Jesus. They don't have time to follow Jesus. And I was like, ooh, could I say that's true? And I think most days I probably could. Like I got my to-do list done for home and school, and made some time for people that matter to me, like my wife, my kids, and my friends. But did I spend time with Jesus? No. So I think like he really is trying to create that margin so that you can prioritize what's first.
Well, it's funny because I think a big piece of that is the idea of like, you said the to-do list. I said, well, I got done everything on my to-do list. And some of the stuff on my to-do list was stuff that I was doing for God. Mm-hmm. But part of following Jesus, it is never exclusively what are we doing for him. Yeah. I mean, there's always this massive part, or are we being with him? Are we spending time with him? That's part of following Jesus. And so if we might be able to point to all the things we're doing, or the things we checked off, but that doesn't necessarily actually get us to the place where are we following Jesus the way that he intends for us to follow Jesus.
I've tried the Bible in a Year plan on the Bible app. Yeah. And it became a busy thing for me. I was like, I have these 6 checklist items to read the Bible, so let me zoom through this real quick so I can move on to my next.
We'll check at the end, exactly. And he did it. Keep your streak going.
It makes you feel good, and then you're like, wait.
I'm currently doing that, so now I'm like rethinking. I'm currently.
Maybe you're not as bad. I'm just more sinful.
Tell us what you read today and how you're applying it to your life. That'd be great to know.
Anyway, I totally feel what you're saying.
I think one of the really helpful things for me especially with this chapter, but the whole book in a lot of ways, a lot of times for me when I read something like this, where it's like, I really want to change this piece of my life, I usually go into this mode of like this huge plan that I think I can do right away, but it's actually like a 15-year plan. Yeah. I'm just not thinking of it that way. And so I'm like trying to change every single aspect of my life, which would be great if we could, but I'd forget about it like 3 days later, and then I just don't go back to it. So some of the stuff he has in this chapter specifically are like things that you would maybe think that's not even significant. Why would I do that? But it starts to reset our brain. So a few of the things that I've done is, and this is a really simple one. You might be hearing this and thinking like, that's dumb. That shouldn't do anything. Like we have a water cooler in our house, and there's a few places around town where you fill up nice cold spring water. You just put the 5-gallon jug underneath it. And typically I'll go, and while those jugs are filling up, I'm looking at my phone, I'm scrolling through my phone, I'm like sending emails or, playing a game or whatever. And recently I've just like, it's as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to leave my phone in the car for these literally 5 minutes.
Right.
And I'm just going to fill up these water jugs without my phone. I'm just going to stare at the water as it pours into the jug. Yeah. And the first few times I'm literally like reaching for my phone and looking back at the car thinking like,
I forgot it.
Should I just go grab it quick? But it's like, there's simple things where it resets your brain. It makes you think, okay, I can actually just relax for a minute. I have nowhere to be, so let me just relax. So there's a lot of things in this chapter that hit at that. Standing in the longest line in the grocery store.
Without your phone.
Which is infuriating. I've done it a few times, and I don't know that it was helpful for my heart, but it was maybe resetting my brain a little bit. So there's a few things in there that are just, it's forcing you to slow down. It's simple.
Who knows? Like you're not on your phone then, and then one of the kids from Extreme is right there, and you get a chance to see them, or you get to like bump into someone from high school you haven't seen before in a long time, and it allows you to be present to the situation. And
I really like your point too, Jake, about it's like, well, like this is not a way I've lived maybe ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, then you read a book like this and you're like, all right, here's all the sweeping changes I'm going to make. Yeah. It's like if I've never run for the last 10 years and I'm signing up for a 5K tomorrow, it's like, hey, maybe that's a terrible idea.
Let's
and there's
go
a
on a walk
slower way
first.
to ease yourself into this.
Yeah.
It's like maybe pick out the one thing like that and just say, like, hey, well, here's one thing I'm going to do. So yeah, I really like that. I think for me, the one thing that stood out in that chapter that convicted me was the idea of our, I think he said it like, our time is our life and our attention is the doorway to our hearts. And so basically he's saying like, whatever we're giving our attention to, like it or not, realize it or not, it is shaping us. We're being discipled by what we're giving our attention to. Yeah. And it may be really subtle ways that we don't even notice, maybe ever. But it's like, you know, if you're watching television, it's like, you know, we're in a consumeristic culture and just about everything you're watching is saying, you know, look out for yourself, get what's good for you, you know, all that kind of, like, you can't just soak that stuff in and have it and say to yourself, this is having no impact on the way I think, no impact on my heart, right? No impact on the way I look at other people. So that really convicted me, that idea of like, okay, part of, and again, this is maybe me specifically, but part of my slowing kind of has to be in that area of electronics, of entertainment, of social media, of what am I ingesting kind of in my downtime when I'm not necessarily working. And that actually is a kind of a good transition point for us to just kind of say, I'd be really curious just to have you guys share with us what is the one or two things that you're kind of specifically doing. You know, like Jake, like I've read this whole book, but here's the one or two things that I'm trying to apply to my life to help me slow down.
Yeah. I think so much of it, like for me personally, centers around this amazing tool and also burden that I carry in my pocket. And a lot of the ideas that Comer has in the book, he talks a lot about this book too, Make Time, by two guys, Jake Knapp and John Zertasky, who were like killing it, I think, for Google Ventures, and but realized that like they were just losing their lives in the midst of all the accessibility that people had to them and they had to the world. So I think for me, it's things like I took email off my phone. If somebody needs me, they're going to text me or they're going to call me. I think it's like we were talking before we started filming, like not consuming TV and consuming social media. And I think you said, Jake, also shopping on Amazon on your laptop at the same time. Like, I mean, it's crazy to me that I can consider a date night with my wife doing TV and social media scrolling and shopping and hey, that was fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. That's crazy. So I think so much for me is like finding the margin. If I'm consuming technology, consume one at a time. And then really trying to like just build in margin. I think I keep coming back to that word because I think that this has become like the margin filler for all of us, whether it's filling up the water, whether it's standing in the checkout line, whether it's on the couch instead of engaging with our spouse. I think any type of margin, we try to fill it with something. And this is the easiest vice, mistress, whatever you want to call it on the side that you can fill your time with.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things in my mind. So this is kind of going back to what Scott was saying a little bit ago with honestly, just being intentional and aware of what you're actually consuming. Like that's a really, every phone has you can track how much time you've actually spent on your phone. It can be kind of horrific to look back and be like, I spent how much time on my phone this week? Like we're putting in full-time hours on you start
phones. Justify like, well, I was on a Zoom call once for 30 minutes.
I was on Spotify for an hour, so that must be what all of that. It's like, well, you did 45 hours, so that's not. But yeah, intentionality of like being aware of what you're doing. And then I think the other piece, it's like one of the things that I've done recently, probably in the last year, I actually got rid of all social media. So I have no social media right now. I think it was a little bit easier for me.
Like just like off your phone or like
I don't have it.
You don't have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have an Instagram. None of that stuff. And I wasn't very like big on them before, but I still always had them on my phone. So I deleted all my accounts. What I found though, is if I don't replace the time I spent on those things with something else that's useful, it's real easy for me to then just fill it in with mindless stuff once again. So like I deleted all my social media, and then like a week later I had like 4 games on my phone that were like just as mind numbing.
I'll be like 30 new podcasts you were subscribed to.
And it was just like, it's the same amount of time I'm spending doing nothing. It's just not social media. So what's the point? So I'm working on ways to actually like add meaningful things into that time. So if you're just trying to, and part of that is I'm not just adding things that will like give me something to do. Some of that is, okay, I haven't, I feel like I really want to reach for my phone right now. Maybe I'm just going to take 10 minutes and be still, just be quiet. I've been really trying to practice that whole thing of going to God with no agenda. So I think part of the piece of prayer in my life, which has stopped me from slowing, is I have all these things that I want God to help me with or fix or give an answer to. And it's like, when's the last time I just like went and said, God, I'm here. Speak to me. This is your agenda. I don't want to bring my stuff into this, your agenda. So adding stuff in instead of just scrolling on my phone has been important and not easy.
I think like that's like all throughout the Psalms. Like we talk about the be still Psalm, but like everywhere, 27, 33, 37, like they're all through like waiting on God. Yeah. And I think I too much like go to God like I do like to my job every day, where here's my to-do list that I need to talk about with you. That was great. Talk to you later. I'll see you here the same time tomorrow. You know what I mean? And if I slow down, if I'm not in a hurry, I'm ruthlessly eliminating a hurry, then I'm able, I think, to actually have that conversation with God. If I'm so rushed and I'm just trying to get this done before I'm on to the next thing, I'm not slowing down, then it does feel much more like I'm just talking at God and never actually waiting to hear back.
It's relational versus transactional.
Yeah. I think like you made a point earlier, like if we just do stuff for God, we're never really going to know him. It's like the same thing. Like we're all married. If I just like do Mackenzie's to-do list for me and I crush that, I mean, that'll make her happy. But if I don't ever take time to get to know her as a person, I'm just like the to-do list guy who's just crossing things off the list, going to the grocery store, whatever. I mean, I'm never actually going to know her as a person and not going to really love her well. And it's, I mean, I think.
Yeah. That's something I've actually, I've asked my wife before, I've asked my kids, you know, well, specifically the older two who are, you know, kind of old enough to have an idea of what a healthy relationship might look like. Mm-hmm. And just kind of saying like, you know, like, hey, Thea, if I was giving you the kind of relational time that I'm giving God or that you're giving God, would we have a healthy marriage? Mm. You know, and if not, it's like, okay, well then maybe my relationship with Christ isn't as healthy as it could be. Yeah. Not even should be. It's like could be. There's so much more there to experience and enjoy. And I think for me, you know, my kind of practical application, I think it was in this Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, but I recently read somewhere that the average iPhone user touches their smartphone, I think it's like over 2,600 times a day. Jeez. And I've recently heard somebody else kind of make the point, specifically with kids. I've got 5 kids, and I'm just kind of recognizing that, you know, the way I'm handling all this, oftentimes, you know, what your kids end up picking up is it's much more caught than taught. So it's like, if I'm telling them like, hey, it's important for you to spend time with Christ and all that, but they're not seeing it, but they're maybe seeing me touch my cell phone 1,300 times a day. There's something being communicated and taught to them, even if I don't realize that I'm doing it. And so even some of the stuff, I mean, I you know, don't want to like, well, we're all doing the kind of the same thing, but I think it just speaks to the reality of like, hey, this cell phone in our pocket is a really huge trap. Right. Of time and attention and all that. So the same type of thing, just kind of, you know, he talks about treating the phone like your kids, you know, it goes to bed at 8:30 and it doesn't get to wake up early. Yeah. You know, it's just kind of like put it on air. I think he said him and his wife, they put it on airplane mode and leave it in the other room. Yeah.
He goes days without even using it. I mean, that's just crazy to me, but it's
So for me, it's going to be that. It's going to be some of the stuff you were talking about I think, you know, taking email off my phone and just recognizing like I don't have to check it 5 times a day. I can, you know, it's like the social media stuff. And I was actually really appreciative of what you shared, Jake, because at one point I had a mobile game on my phone. I'm like, this is taking too much time. I'm deleting it off. And I deleted it off. And it was like, it was like a day or two later, I was like playing a different game. And I'm like, when did I literally uploaded this after I deleted this other one. It's like, what am I doing? You know, so just kind of like you said, being aware, paying attention, and just kind of figuring out a way to start phasing this cell phone out of my life, and most specifically out of my time after I get home, so that I can actually spend time with my wife, with my kids, with the Lord, and bring these kinds of, you know, faith-filled, Christ-centered conversations even around the dinner table, you know, and things like that. So for me, that's kind of what I'm going to be leaning into in the next couple of days, weeks.
It's funny you talk about the phone thing. I mean, how many times you picked up your phone and you're like 3 minutes in, you didn't even realize you picked it up and like that you're scrolling and you're like, what the heck? And
how did that
I think
happen?
you're so right that our kids just watch. I mean, I think The Make Time guys, Comer, a lot of the stuff, reason they wrote the books they did about getting our lives back is because they were seeing the impact it was having on their families and the way that their young kids were going to be eventually remodeling just exactly what they're doing and trapped by technology and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a ton of things that we could keep talking about. But let me just encourage you guys before we end, pick something to help slow down, whether that's something with your phone, like we've been talking about. It could be any number of things. Find somewhere in your life where you can slow down and spend time with God, and let us know how that goes. Cause it's helpful, I think, to hear how other people are doing this, because it gives us more ideas. Even this book has given us so many ideas. So let us know how some of that goes. Pick something. And thanks for spending some time with us. Let me pray for us before we go. God, thank you that you want to be in relationship with us. You desire for us to spend time with you. God, we don't even deserve that, but you love us so deeply. You want us to be with you. So would you help us to slow down? Would you help us to get rid of all the tons and tons of distractions that we have in our lives on a daily basis? Would you help us to eliminate hurry and slow down and look for you in the everyday? As we're going through our days, would we be listening for you and seeking your direction? Would you help us to be disciplined and to see the value of this? Because I just truly believe when we slow down, when we listen for you, we won't miss the distractions. We'll be thrilled with the relationship and the quality time that you give us. So help us to get there. Thank you for your love for us. Thank you for all that you do for us. And we love you. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Be still, my soul, the Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently the cross of grief or pain. Leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change, he faithful will remain. Be still, my soul, thy best, thy heavenly friend. Through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. Be still, my soul, thy God doth undertake to guide the future as he has the past. Thy hope, thy confidence, let nothing shake. All now mysterious shall be bright at last. Be still, my soul, the waves and winds still know his voice who rules
you I rest, in you I found my hope. In you I trust, you never let me go. I place my life within your hands alone. Be still, my soul. This is surrendering all over to God. It's not only obedience, but it's marked by love when we say to God that we trust him. And what incredible encouragement we received today. Thank you, guys. And Jake reminded us to pick something that will help us to slow down. So what is that going to be for you? Take a moment right now to consider this and to complete this statement: I will blank. I'm reminded of something John Eldredge said in his book titled Get Your Life Back. He said, there is a sweetness to the downtime, even if it's brief. We can find more of God there. Eliminate hurry. Make space for God. Well, if you have any questions about today's discussion, or why don't you let us know what your takeaway is from today so that we can join you in prayer? Just shoot me a text at the number on your screen. I would love to hear from you. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today.
To guide the future as he